Prime Minister Morrison, Madam Speaker, parliamentary representatives and senators, I'm honoured to be here today. Firstly, I wish to acknowledge the first Australians, in particular the Ngunnawal people, who are the traditional owners of the land on which this parliament stands. My name is Vishal Venkatesh and I'm the member for Lingiari in the Northern Territory. And before I begin my parliamentary submission, I would like to remind everyone that I do not belong to the Anangu community. I'm simply here to advocate for a cause that concerns the Anangu people. Ayers Rock, or Uluru, as it is more commonly known, is the largest monolith on the planet. It is 3 billion years old and is widely perceived as the magnetic womb of the world, making it a symbol of national pride. This iconic red sandstone rock injects about $320 million worth of tourism revenue into our economy every year, showcasing both the local and international interest in the human dignity of Indigenous culture. It is this amalgamation of national pride and human dignity that has collectively transformed Uluru into the beating heart of Australian people. But the activity of rock climbing has repeatedly attacked this heart every day since the late 1930s, which was when the visitors first started to climb the rock. Banning all forms of the Uluru climb is the least we can do as Australians to try to heal the bleeding wounds of the attacked heart. And this will be done in 3 ways. It will eliminate the safety concern associated with climbing Uluru, it will respect the religious sensibilities of Anangu Australians, and it will preserve the rock for future generations. First and foremost, climbing Uluru is unsafe and it must be banned on this basis. Year after year, we have case studies from all age groups and fitness levels that warn us about the dangerous nature of the climb. Not enforcing a ban essentially means that these cases have been ignored by our government. It is this ignorance that attacks the heart of Australians. 37 individuals have died in the process of climbing the rock since the year 1950, and the injuries are countless. In 2010, a Victorian man was trying to descend to the base of the rock when he slipped and fell to the bottom. The 160-meter fall brutally killed the man. In 2018, a 76-year-old Japanese tourist collapsed and lost his life when trying to ascend the steepest part of the rock. A couple of months ago, a middle-aged man suffered from a cardiac arrest when trying to climb the rock, but fortunately he was rescued. And just yesterday, a 12-year-old girl injured herself at the site. In response to these kinds of deaths and injuries, the government-run Uluru Kata Tujuta National Park Board stated, "We put signs at the base of Uluru for safety's sake." The board has been advising the public to not climb Uluru since 1985, when the rock was first handed back to the Anangu people. And I could see that the federal government is taking the safety issue seriously, but it still fails to acknowledge that the ban is crucial. How many more deaths and injuries do we need to see before the government imposes the ban? Unlike the man-made tourist attractions of Australia, like the Sydney Harbour Bridge, for example, there is actually no way to guarantee complete public safety for Uluru climbers without interfering with the rock itself. For example, we can flatten out the surface of the rock or build a dome over it to control temperatures. But this would be a grave injustice against the Anangu people because to them, Uluru is not just a rock, it is their sacred mountain. As the Anangu elders say, Uluru is not a Disneyland theme park. It shouldn't be customized in the best interests of consumer wants. We cannot treat Uluru and the Sydney Harbour Bridge in the same manner when it comes to safety. You see, the Sydney Harbour Bridge was built with public safety in mind. For example, they used ductile steel, which ensured safety for climbers. And although 16 workers died during construction, no member of the public has ever died from climbing the bridge legally. On the other hand, Uluru was not built by man. It naturally exists, meaning that there are risky natural world factors at play. The rock is very steep, the desert temperatures are often extreme, there is no shade, and the consequence of this is fatality. Most of the deaths have been attributed to cardiac arrests from the heat and slipping on the surface due to its uneven and steep nature. We need the ban for this reason. It will break the chain of governmental ignorance, which inevitably heals the wounds of the heart of Australians. Secondly, climbing Uluru must be banned because it is a wildly offensive act against the Anangu religion. However, 140 unauthorized individuals still climb the rock per day. These non-Indigenous Australians are not showing mutual respect towards the belief of Indigenous Australians. Fundamentally, Uluru contains the spiritual power of reverent Indigenous ancestral beings, and it is this power that must be naturally released through rituals. So, when an unauthorized foot rubs against a rock, the spiritual power will release itself unnaturally, meaning that it has been disturbed and tampered with. It is this form of respect that attacks the heart of true Australians. Section 116 of our Constitution claims that the Commonwealth cannot create laws that prohibits the free exercise of any religion. A selective group of men belonging to the Mala clan are the only individuals who are culturally and spiritually ever authorized to climb the rock, and even that can only be done for certain rituals. You see, the Anangu people can only freely exercise their religion if the only people who climb the rock are Mala men. The Commonwealth, however, as we all know, allows unauthorized persons to climb through enforcing a legislative policy under Parks Australia, which is a part of the Department of Agriculture, Water and the Environment. This prohibits the free exercise of the Anangu religion. There is no freedom when the Anangu people do not get to decide who gets to climb a rock that is exclusively sacred to them. On top of this, climbing opens up opportunities for more offensive acts. In recent years, some Uluru climbers have been defecating, urinating, and even dumping nappies at the rock. There have even been lingerie shoots on Uluru. European colonial documentation reveals that the settlers who developed the white national identity view the rock as nothing more than an object that slightly resembles a snake. But the Anangu people perceive Uluru as kunia, which means aging mother in the Anangu language. When climbing itself is considered to disturb the spiritual power, I can only imagine the degree of offense and pain endured by the Anangu people when such acts of vulgarity are committed against their mother. Defecating on Uluru is the equivalent of defecating on the Vatican Church or the Kaaba Mosque in Medina. We need the ban to uphold mutual respect driven by religious equality because it is important to foster a bridge between Anangu and non-Anangu Australians. And that rationale is supported by multiple international precedents. For example, in 2014, two Perth brothers urinated over the shrine of the Hindu temple of Brahmanan in Bali. They were immediately arrested. Indonesia is an Islamic country, but they upheld mutual respect through enforcing religious equality. Australia is a predominantly Christian country, hence, let us learn from our neighbour by imposing the ban against the Uluru climb to move forward, to heal the wounds of the disrespectful attack against the heart of Australians. And finally, the Uluru climb must be banned because it goes against the two main objectives of the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act 1999, which I will from now onwards refer to as the EPBC. Climbing has strongly damaged the Uluru area, and this has majorly attacked the heart of Australians because the rock is not being properly preserved for future generations. The first objective is to provide for the protection of the environment, especially matters of national environmental significance. Uluru is only one of the 12 places in the world to have gained a dual UNESCO World Heritage listing for its significance to the natural environment, but climbing has eroded the walking path on the rock. The surface has become smooth and flat. Uluru needs to naturally restore itself, but this will only happen if the rock remains untouched for a few million years. Park officials have recently reported that the face of Uluru has been distorted due to climbing-triggered erosion. A visibly distorted version of the rock has been handed down to future generations by the federal government. So this is proof that the rock is not protected in any sense. The second objective is to conserve Australian biodiversity. Uluru and surrounding areas possess 27 rare and 47 threatened species of plants and 20 animal species that are very close to extinction. Climbing has unfortunately threatened many of the animals. For example, in 2009, it was discovered that the rare Branchinella latzi shrimp species became extinct because of the Uluru climb. Some climbers excreted on top of the rock, and the human feces unfortunately contaminated the Mujitulu waterhole, which was the home to the shrimp. The shrimp consequently consumed the human waste, died, and quickly went extinct as a species. Such case studies prove that future generations have inherited the issue of unconserved biodiversity. And beyond the fact that the federal government has been non-compliant with what is arguably the two most important objectives of the EPBC, we need to understand why the Uluru needs to be properly preserved on a very deeper level. In the South Indian state of Kerala, there is a Hindu temple called Sabrimala. According to Hinduism, menstruating women aged between 10 to 50 are forbidden from entering that specific temple. And they're considered as impure because it is assumed that their presence will distract the teenage male deity Ayyappan. This is a religious rule, but the underlying reason or rationale is that the temple is situated in the midst of a holy jungle, which contains a number of tiger and elephant reserves. You see, these animals could enter the temple and attack the women upon smelling their period blood. Late last year, the Supreme Court overturned the religious rule and held that women are allowed to enter Sabrimala. And as expected, many of the women who entered were subject to various kinds of animal attacks. The temple is being handed down to future generations, but it is being handed down in a religiously unorthodox form, with stories of bloodshed, because the natural ecosystem has been intrinsically disturbed. It is not being preserved in the way that it was meant to be preserved. Similarly, Australia has disturbed the natural ecosystem of Uluru through damage and is therefore improperly preserved at the moment. We must ban the Uluru climb, just as the Indian Supreme Court should have banned women from entering Sabrimala, because that ensures not just preservation, but proper preservation. And that is what heals the wounds of damage, Mr. Speaker. Overall, it is strikingly clear that the Uluru climb is a very complex topic with many intersections between religion, law, history, politics, tourism, nature, safety. The list is endless. But in deconstructing all of this complexity, we found that, like all rivers leading to the ocean, these intersections lead to a center point: to ban the Uluru climb. Australia, it's the right thing to do, so let's do it.